what I'm going to show you quickly how to do now is how to cut out a ring if you wanted to add that kind of detail to your sign. In order to cut this out, I'm going to use my bandsaw as well as my router, both with circle jigs. So the first thing that I'm going to do is cut out the outer edge of the circle using my bandsaw. What I have here is a scrap piece of NDF. It's about 24 inches square, and I know that my exterior circle needs to be 23 inches in diameter. So what I am going to do is use this jig that goes with my bandsaw. This is called a simple circle cutter. It is made by Stockroom Supply. I'll tag them down in the comments so that you're able to find them. But this is a jig specifically made for bandsaws. You can use it with a variety of different bandsaws. I have the Rikon 10-inch. So in order to use this simple circle cutter, you need to mark your center point and then adjust the circle cutter to the size diameter that you'd like to cut. Again, that's 23 inches. So I have this set up. I'm gonna mark my center spot, and then I'm gonna go ahead and cut out my first circle. Okay, so now that I have my center spot, what I'm gonna do is take a small nail and hammer it through to get the pin in place. All right, let's cut out a circle.
Once you have set up your simple circle cutter to the size diameter you want to cut your circle, you simply slot that center pin in that you hammered in with a nail in order to cut out a perfect exterior circle. You want to make sure that you have it perfectly centered, especially if you don't have much excess material like I do here, and you're going to want to brace your material so it doesn't slide around as you cut. But using this simple circle cutting jig makes it really simple to cut out any size circle.
Now that I've cut my large 23-inch circle, what I'm going to do now is use my router with the Milescraft circle jig to cut out the inner circle so that I make that complete ring. I marked my center point so that I could cut the circle out on the bandsaw, which makes it super easy to find the center point for the next circle that I'm going to cut on the inside. So I know that I want my circle to be a 1/2 inch thick. That is exactly the size from the design. So what I'm going to do is use my tape measure, mark a 1/2 inch from the edge so that I know how to set up my router to cut that inside circle. Okay, so for the Milescraft jig, you have this really handy center point. You're gonna go ahead and put it right on the center point that you had already done for the outer circle, and you're gonna screw that in securely. So I have my center point screwed into my board. This is the Milescraft Large Circle Jig. This thing can cut up circles up to, I believe, 52 inches in diameter. So what you're gonna wanna do, as I said, I marked the 1/2 inch where I want to cut it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the pivot on there. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and find my, there it is, my mark of where I want to make my cut. It's right about there. So once you have it lined up, you wanna make sure that you have these guides secure. Like, you don't want these to move because then it's gonna mess up your circle. So make sure both pivot points are super snug so that nothing is gonna move while you're cutting that circle. That actually is a mistake that I made. One time I forgot to tighten this fully. The router shifted slightly and then I didn't have a perfect circle. I had like a wonky doodle circle. Okay, so now that I have this set up, double check everything's tight. What I'm gonna do, put my PP on. I'm gonna lower it about 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch at a time. I don't wanna burn my router out, don't wanna make it work too hard. So it's gonna take me a few passes to cut this circle out.
When you're using your router to cut out the circles, I like to hold the middle of the jig just to make sure it doesn't slide off while you're cutting. And especially if you're using a corded router like I am here, you always want to make sure you keep track of where that cord is so you don't accidentally get tripped up or cut through your cord. Take it nice and easy, dropping it a small amount at a time to make sure you don't burn out your motor as well.
And there you have it. A perfect ring for your sign.